Hi, hello, and welcome to the library. My name is Miyabi Mitsara, and I'll be your host today. I am with a very special guest today, Fruity Snacks, that is the uh, project leader, let's say, of the Eorzeum Aquarium, the Eorzeum Museum Network. And we'll be talking a little bit today about fishing and community building in Final Fantasy XIV. So, Fruity Snacks, thank you for coming. I hope that you are doing good today.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing fine on this Friday morning.
Thank you for answering my invitation so quickly and in such a short notice. So, as I mentioned, I kind of want to talk about the Eorzean Aquarium because I'm making a video on fishing and what fishing means to people in real life, but also in video games. But before that, maybe we can talk a little bit about you. Maybe you can introduce yourself and how you came to play Final Fantasy 14.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Fruity Snacks. Nowadays, I'm known mostly as that fish guy. I pretty much trying to figure out how best way to say this. I'm pretty much known before the aquarium. I was known for guides. I would make guides on how to catch notable fish, not just big fish in 14, but like crafting fish, things like that. Then created the Eorzean Aquarium, which kind of blew up, and so I'm now the head of the Eorzean Aquarium on Crystal and the Eorzean Museum Network, which is an in-game network of a variety of museums and what we call cultural venues. Um, but yeah, no, I'm pretty much what people would call a fisherman. I have at least, I think, one, two, three, maybe not five accounts, five characters that
That
I
are
do various fishing
just for
on.
fishing.
Yeah, just for fishing. Um, three of which have caught all the big fish in the game
Wow. Okay.
between A Realm Reborn and Endwalker, so they have the final fish title.
Okay.
And three of which are also primed to get all the rest of the Dawn Trail ones as well. So I'll probably have that before
Yeah,
8.0.
this is really impressive. And so you started fishing in 14, like kind of immediately when you started the game, or was it something that came like a bit after?
Uh, a little bit after. It's kind of weird. I've always liked fishing in games. I've always found it to be like a fun little relaxing side thing. So I did fish a bit, but I didn't do it a lot because back when I started, which was like I think it was mid Heaven's Ward is when I started. So I've been playing for almost 10 years now, if not over 10 years. Um I would fish a bit, but back then it was really slow to level fisher. So even if I was fishing as much as I would say doing botany and minor, which I was also doing those as well because I liked the gathering classes, um, it wasn't leveling up as quickly. So it wasn't until Shadowbringers when I really actually sat down and was like, no, I need to get fishing on par with botany and minor, and really sat down, did that, and then I was like, well, hey, now that I'm max fishing, which was 80 at the time, um, what else can I do with this? Because this is kind of fun. And I was walking through Gridania one day, and this player was teaching another player how to catch the big fish near the Aetheryte, near the Adder's HQ in Gridania, which is called the Bloody Brewer. And they were like, "Yeah, this is what you do, and here's how you do that." And I was like, "Can you teach me?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. Go get this bait." Went, got it, came back, and caught it. I was like, "Oh, well, that was kind of fun." Uh, and then I realized that there was a checkbox that was completed, and I was like, "Oh, more checkboxes." And I just I wasn't typically the type of guy who would be like, "Oh, let's start checking off boxes." But this one just really scratched a nice itch, and did all of Gridania, and then I did all of the Shroud, and then I did all the Nosha, and then I just kept going and going and going and going. Apologize if you hear my cat in the background. My
Oh,
wife
don't
just
worry,
left,
my cat
so
will
she's
also she will also act at some point, so don't worry about it. And so you say like you were not like exactly a completionist, and so you went into like fishing completionism, but like is there something else that you do like completionism with in the game, or is it just like fishing for you?
I do a fair bit of other stuff in game than just fishing. I've been doing a lot of PvP because I'm in a PvP tournament tomorrow. As of recording right now, this is tomorrow. So I've been working on not being crap at PvP. I have raided in the past. I think one of the weird things that people are surprised to hear for some odd reason, it'd be like, yeah, I tanked all of Eden Savage
Oh yeah, I
during
see. Okay.
Shadowbringers. Um, and I do mahjong now. Apparently, that's like the other big thing. So like, I was this very recently. Someone called me Mister Side Content.
I mean,
So I do a lot of I don't do a lot of the mainline stuff anymore. I don't really raid. I don't do
yeah.
savage raids. I've done one ultimate, but it was uwu.
Mm,
I'm looking to do T and Futures Rewritten ultimate. Uh, for the joke of being able to do Fru and T. Um, but beyond that, right now a lot of it is, fishing, managing fishing community stuff,
yeah.
and just whatever I feel like doing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty healthy. I used to do raiding as well, and it was funny because like some of our sessions were kind of delayed because someone had like a fishing window at some point, and we were like, "Oh, can we wait like 5 minutes just to catch like a fish?" And we
Dur-
were like, "Okay, it's fine."
During the ad pause, the ad phase pause during Shiva, so
Yeah,
E8S,
yeah.
I would be decenting fish
This is crazy.
after the ads phase during the downtime from Diadem because we didn't have auto desynth at the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So my inventory was I was literally going from the Diadem straight into raid. I had an inventory full of fish I had to desynth, and
And
it ended up becoming
because you needed some space
uh
in your inventory for like the loot, or
I just so I had something to do.
oh,
So I
okay,
was
just
trying
because
it was like
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it was like
mhm.
1 or 2 seconds of ad of
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah,
1
of
or 2
course.
seconds. It was like 30 seconds of downtime, and I was like, "Well, I could just desynth fish."
Yeah,
And so then it became a thing in my raid, and we couldn't call it a proper clear if I hadn't desynced at least 1 fish.
this is crazy. This is crazy. Um, and I wanted to ask you also, did you have like any fishing experience in real life, or was it just in games, as you said before?
So I did fish a bit when I was a kid with my uncle and like at camps and stuff. I didn't do it seriously though, actually, until after I really started fishing in 14. That's when the like COVID pandemic came in and everyone was basically forced to just hang out outside. And I kind of was like, wait, I could just go fish outside. And that sounds like a fun thing to do. And so I bought a license, I got a fishing rod and promptly broke it, got another fishing rod that was a little bit more durable, and started catching fish. And I've been doing that for, I think this will be my 3rd season.
Oh, okay. We'll talk a little bit about that later, I think, because it's very interesting to me, like this pipeline in this order: video games first, and then like in real life. So we kind of mentioned like why you started building like communities, doing guides and stuff. What exactly pushed you to go from making guides to making an aquarium? Because it's kind of a different thing, right? Like in the first one, you are like teaching new fishes, and in the second one, you're trying to introduce like fishing to a broader community. Maybe it's people that are not interested in fish.
Yeah, so one of the big things that fishing has when it comes to like hurdles that it has to overcome in Final Fantasy 14 is that it is shrouded in mystery and rumor and myth and not a lot of positive views.
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about making an aquarium, I actually wasn't thinking about making an aquarium. I was actually thinking about making a effectively like a fisher's guild that was actually useful. Because like we have all these guilds in Final Fantasy
Yes.
14, but really they're just there to act as like a narrative piece. There's nothing really there to help you get started, or there isn't really like there's some of them have vendors, but they're just like basic gear. Like they're just kind of there to get you started, and then you just outpace it. Well, I wanted to create a house that people could come to. There would be cheap gear, bait that they could get for free, like basically turn it into a resource. And as I was thinking about how I wanted this to be made and how I wanted it to be structured, uh, I realized that um, aquariums, so fishing tanks, like the tanks that we put fish in, has have a housing limit. So if you have a small house, you can only have six. Apartment and FC room is four. 8 is medium. 10 is large.
Yes.
That's it. It doesn't matter the size of the tank. You can only have like that many fish tanks. And I realized that FC rooms don't count
Yes. Yes.
towards that limit. And I was like, oh, and this is just an offhand comment that I made in the fish cord in the Crystal DC channel. I just made this as an offhand comment with no intention of following up. And I was like, "Oh, if an FC was so intrepid, they could use FC rooms to house every
Yes.
aquarium fish in the game." And I should not have said that because within 30 minutes I had 5 people going, "All right, I'm a Marlboro with an alt. What are we doing?"
Yeah,
I gotta
immediately
say,
people were interested in it.
yeah, by the end of the night, we had a house. Like, someone was just like,
Really,
"I
yeah.
will give you a house to do this." And then I was just like, "All right, well, I guess this is gonna become the fishing guild." And it was originally being built just as, like, a fun thing for the community to build, and as a resource for the housing community to be able to come and actually see what the fish look like
Yes.
in tanks rather than just pictures. Because at the time, this would have been early Endwalker.
Yes.
No. Yeah. No, late Endwalker. I forget. It was 3 years ago. I
3 years
can't
ago
remember
should
now.
be
The
oh, wait, because we are like 1 year and a half
We're
into
yeah, we're about a year and a half into Dawn Trails. So this
so
would have been Endwalker.
middle and Wooker, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so middle Endwalker. Okay, I'm not too crazy. Um, Actually, now that I think about it, I think it was 6.1 had just passed.
Okay.
I think was when we started. Um, but basically, it was like back then there wasn't good resources on what these fish look like, and I was like, well, we can just build this, and then we can have housing people can come in and just browse through it if they need it. And the whole build was, I think, initially about 23 to 25 exhibits that we called them. They're just basically FC rooms. And it took 28 days, and we launched on May 1st of 2022,
Yeah.
21, 22. Uh, and we were expecting like 50 people to show up
Mhm.
that night. We got 50 people within the first few minutes
With,
after posting
I
it
guess, like,
on
everything was
Twitter.
crowded inside the house, right? People couldn't enter
Uh,
the venue?
so yes and no. Like those really large crowd sounds that you hear where it's like a lot of uproar and
Yes.
a lot of people talking. You should never hear that in a small house, and
Yeah, yeah.
we did. Um, but what this wasn't intentional, but what ended up being the accidental positiveness of how the aquarium is structured is we can house more people than a normal house can have because everybody's in the private rooms.
Oh, this is and they're
Everyone's in the
spread
FC
around the
rooms,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and those don't count towards the higher population.
Mm,
So we were able to distribute the people throughout the rooms, and at the time we were estimating we could probably hold about 1,000 people in the aquarium.
okay.
We didn't at one point, but we did estimate that we had about 1,000 players come through within the first 24 to 48 hours.
Mm. But this is pretty impressive. Like you mentioned how in game in the story things were a bit lacking when it comes to presenting fishing resources and stuff. I remember when I did the fishing quest, and you have like this quest. I think at the end of Rhythm Reborn at level 50, where you need to catch several
Legendary
legendary
fish?
fish.
Yeah, Feast of Famine and the
Yeah,
Beast of Brewer's Beacon, and then the Feast of
yeah.
Famine, yeah.
Um, in on my main, I still haven't finished this quest because it feels so daunting. You have no indication in game. You need to check like guides outside to know what you're doing. And it's true that like I think there was something lacking in Realm Reborn. I think it got better afterwards. I think I like the job quests because they showcase the environment a bit more. But definitely, I would have seen like something like the aquarium, like in the base game, because it feels like such an interesting thing. And
So,
yeah, yeah, go on.
in the base game, it couldn't actually exist 'cause, aquariums didn't show up until Heavensward.
Oh, it was
So
Ravensfall. Okay.
so yeah, and you're not the only person I've heard, even, like, this week, that I've been talking to who is like, "I still have Feast of Famine in my quest log," because it isn't presented super well of, like it's
Yes.
just like, "Hey, go catch these legendary fish," and doesn't prompt you
Yeah.
anyway like, anywhere to go. And part of the reason why fishing in 14 has such a like, a mythos around it and, like, the that air of confusion is because it is designed to be a community-oriented job.
Yes. Yes.
It is it's kind of like we refer to it as the limited job before Blue Mage existed,
Mm,
because it was so different from Botany and Minor because it has so much more content compared to Botany and Minor, and it has its own set of rules. It, it's really designed to be something that you actually have to work with other people to
yes.
figure out, and that was partially why. And early on, those resources were not great. They were there, but it was a small community of people who were really fishing, and it was really hidden to like Google Chat in like
Yes. Yes.
Google Sheets. Not even like just broad Google Chat. It was specifically the chat in specific sheets if you wanted to ask questions to people directly, outside of the forums, that is.
Yes.
Uh, that has changed. I mean, we've obviously had we have like the carbuncle plushie tracker. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. Bear with me. Um, to cover like timings, we have Teamcraft to cover timings and locations. Uh, we have my guides. We have the ocean fishing boats tracker for ocean fishing, which wouldn't have mattered in a Realm Reborn. But like we
Yes.
have all these resources now that really help bring it's become less of a issue for fishing of like being aware of it, and now it's
Yes.
just figuring out where to find the information because it does exist in most cases.
I think it has become like very manageable. Like I did not get too far into fishing because it felt like so time consuming, but I felt like I could do it just because you have like so many resources out there and you just have like to take a little bit of time to read and get accustomed to the tools. And I think like immediately when you get into fishing in the game nowadays, like I started in mid Shadowbringers because I started playing in 5.3. Um, it feels like a nice job to take to start um, leveling up, and I think like it has been like such a thing because of the community. And on the topic of that, I wanted to ask you like, how was the team for the aquarium build? You mentioned that like some people kind of like jumped immediately on the ship when you mentioned like FC rooms, but like this is such like a big venue that like there's so many details in the aquarium. Surely you had like to recruit other people to help you.
It was about I think 30 people, myself included, starting it with about 20 of those people contributing alts. In some cases, they contributed their mains. They just became like we have the Aquarium FC, which I'm the leader of. That's my primary FC.
Yes.
Some people just were like, I'm going to come to Marlboro and make this my primary FC because I think it's cool. I'm happy to just devote time to that, and they have. And there's at least maybe 3 or 4 people who are full time mains in that FC. Everybody else is alts. But I found that it wasn't too hard to actually find volunteers in those initial days. We didn't have them all immediately within the first, say, like 24 hours, but within the first week, we had pretty much everybody that we needed. Um, and we were breaking it down of like, all right, who wants this room? Because the way that I broke down the aquarium was by region. So there would be like fish of Lenosha, fish of the Shroud, fish of Thavnair, fish of Garlemald. Um, uh, I basically allowed people to just pick like which region do they associate their personality with the most, and what would they want to create for, and that made it really easy for people to find motivation because now they have an opportunity to represent uh, a region that they associate themselves with in a unique way. And then that just really motivated a lot of people to do that. So we were able to find people pretty quickly. Um, and the way that we structured it was we had a queue of basically like, all right, everyone's leveling their alts because you have to be level 50. You have to have
Yes.
level 50 in a job. You have to be second lieutenant in a grand company. It doesn't matter which grand company, you just have to be one, which takes a little bit of time. And you have to obviously have access to the residential district, which isn't that hard. That's actually like the lowest.
Yes.
That's We found that was a whole lot easier to get than we originally thought. Um, but everyone had to do that. So there was like maybe a week or so when we were just hanging, and there was about a 10-day period. I remember it very vividly because I was panicking because I was like, "Oh, this project dead now." There was about a 10-day period when we weren't making any rooms
Yes.
because people were still leveling because we were waiting for one person because we had to do it in order because you can't rearrange the FC rooms once they're in. So if somebody wants
Oh, yes,
room
yes, yes.
15 but they're taking a little bit longer to level, then everyone else afterwards who might already be done has to wait for that one person. So became really supportive in just helping people get through things quickly because then everybody else could start building. But there was like a 10-day period right there in the middle when nobody was able to make a room for various reasons. And then eventually we got that one last room made. And then, like, within a week, everybody had their rooms assigned. Within a week after that, everything was built. And then I made a post on Twitter like, "Hey, have you ever seen a house with all these like with every fish on display?" And that went like viral within the 14 community. And decided to just ping everybody and say, "Hey, we should probably wrap this up and get to being open." Um, so we were fortunately able to have everything done, and what helped was having a template
Yes.
because we were going to be doing a whole bunch of these different rooms. Somebody developed with me like a template room of a very basic layout of
Yes. Yes.
this is what your room should be laid out of. Here's your canvas. You can paint over it however you want, but you need to have like these things. And it was originally you need to have a message book, you need to have an orchestrion with region
Yes.
related music, and then a like 4 tanks, 4XL metal tanks specifically was what we were going for. Um, Somebody built a tutorial for that, and then everyone just built that out, so that way we had the same consistency over and over again. And because we had that tutorial, anybody at any skill level of housing
Yes.
decoration
Yes.
could come in and help, which really helped in bringing in the volunteers. Um,
It's very interesting. You mentioned this template because I did my homework. I visited the venue in Marlborough, but also like in Spriggan. And I saw that like it was indeed like this very linear template with like two tanks on the left and two tanks on the right. Little things you can like climb onto to get a better view of the fish. But I also saw that some late room, I think for the main venue in US, it was the Yachtel room, but also in the annexes, you kind of like go outside of like this base template. Why was it the case?
So after that initial four, or that initial, not four, that initial like build for the launch, we decided to hold to the template because we really just wanted to make sure that everything could get done.
Yes,
And everyone was afterwards encouraged that if they wanted to change their template, if they wanted to rearrange the room, so long as all four tanks were easily viewable, and people could get up close of all races and height, which is why we have stools for Lalafell.
yeah,
That was actually not something we originally thought of. And then, because we didn't think people would care that much, and then a whole bunch of Lalafell were like, "Hey, could you add stools?" We're just like, "Yeah, okay." And I think we crafted like 150 stools the next day and just
yeah,
placed them in all the rooms. Um, but basically, it was the initial template was, let's get this done and let's make sure that
yes,
it works and it's consistent. It has a coherent, a coherent style. After that, we were just like, okay, based on the feedback, we know what people need. We don't need to have this template. If you feel comfortable breaking the template, uh, as long as you can see all four tanks, everyone can view it, it's not obstructed. I personally am not a huge fan of like two-level buildings or
yeah,
two-level builds because like the camera gets a little
yes,
janky
yes,
for taller characters. I'm a Vieira, so I'm hitting my head on stuff all the
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah,
Um we try not to do that, but if you want to and you feel comfortable doing that, we let you do that. I'm
mm,
not going to hold you back on that now. And again, folks who wanted to go back and redo their template, they were more welcome to. Like they're more than welcome to do that. Um, so basically, we just had people who were doing it, and the kind of rule is if you are going to make a new template, like a new layout, that for your room, before you go too deep into decorating, I need to look at it and just be like yes or no. Like
yeah,
send me pictures, tell me, open up the room so I can go in and look at it really quick and just run a quick test. And never had any issues with that. And so that's basically what we do now is if you want to break up the room like Big Salty did with Yachtel,
yes,
uh, Bruni did that with ocean fishing. I think Sua did that with ocean fishing as well, and Yangsha with Ralger's Dragon. They all had their own layouts, among others. I know that there are others, and those are the four that I could think of off the top of my head. Um, they could just do that if they want.
yes,
And with Spriggan, I had initially kicked off that project with somebody else, and we took the learnings from Aquarium Crystal, and we were like, okay, this is what you can do now. And so that's why you see a little bit more freedom of the template in Crystal or on Spriggan, excuse me, because Crystal kind of went through and figured out what works.
yes.
And then Spriggan was just like, okay, you can just go do whatever you want now. You just have to approve it.
Yes. And speaking of like the differences between the two, I saw that like in Marlborough, you have this really regional distinction for the rooms, but I think like in EU, it's only freshwater fish and ocean fish. And why is it different in EU?
So when we started the aquarium Spriggan, which we originally called Project Paris, because we thought that I thought it was going to be on Moogle, which was
Yeah,
the
yeah,
French with the unofficial French server, um, but it ended up being on Spriggan instead. Uh, one of the things that I told the people who were going to be working on it, because I was kind of helping kickstart it, and then I had somebody who is from Europe who was leading that
yes,
project because I didn't want to tell I didn't want to tell the European players how to make
Yes, yes.
the aquarium. I didn't want to clone aquarium crystal because that just would have been boring. I wanted to give the European fishing community a chance to express themselves however they wanted. I kind of stole a line from, or at least maybe not a line, but like an idea that Disney had when they were branching out
Mm,
into Europe and into China and into um, Japan, where they were. It was like uniquely Disney, distinctly French, or something like
yes,
that,
yes,
or
yes.
distinct, like uniquely Chinese. That's what I wanted with the aquarium, was something that the European community could look at and be like, "We made this, not we were told to make it this way." And so so they had their own way of representing these things. And what the leads decided to do was break it down by water type. So that's why you have fresh water and you have
Mhm.
like salt water and deep
Yeah, exactly.
ocean and Arctic. That's why that's broken down that way, is because that's how they felt it would be best represented and how they wanted to do it. And I was just like, okay, cool, works for me. And just and went from there. So the same thing happened with Aquarium Sophia, which is our aquarium on Materia for the Oceania community. Same exact thing. I just Kyrie is in charge of that one. And I just told her, do whatever you need, do whatever you think works, tell me what resources I can get you, and just run with support that way, so that the Oceania community, who is still very small and very growing, could have that sense of ownership over the
Yes.
aquarium and be like, "Yes, we made this, not somebody made this for us."
And I guess this is the philosophy that went into the museum network, right? To let
Yeah.
everyone have their own thing, but to come as a community in a bigger project. So when did you start thinking about like this collection of museums?
The Eorzean Museum Network came up probably 6 months after the aquarium. The aquarium launch was far bigger than we expected.
Yeah, I can still remember
Uh,
like on social media.
to be very blunt, it was way fucking bigger than we expected.
Yeah, yeah.
We didn't have any idea of how impactful it was going to be on just the community in general, not just like the fishing community. People were making alts because we didn't have DC travel at the time.
Yes.
People were making alts, and you could stand in Gridania that first week after launch, like that first week of May, and just watch people run in, and you can go, they're going to the aquarium. They're going to the aquarium, because they'd have alts like, I'm here for fish, also here for fish. Um, and just traveling, and it was nuts. So we had this huge success of having this venue that wasn't a club, it wasn't a casino, which at the time was, they were really, really big. Back
Yes, yes.
in, early Endwalker, they were huge. You could not go into a starter city, or any city really, without getting 5 or 6 ads in shout chat within the first 2 minutes. And people were really getting frustrated by that. And I was like, well, we just had an aquarium, and that just took off and did really, really well. And a lot of people liked it. A lot of people appreciated it because it wasn't a club. It was something that they could do on their own. Like, it was actually engaging.
Yes.
I was like, well, there's got to be more of these. And I started looking, and there was a few people who have made museums and who made uh like what we would now call cultural venues, like things that weren't clubs, things that weren't casinos, things that were trying to display interesting facts about Eorzea in a organized, curated way. And so starting with, I think we started with uh 2 aquariums, a museum that I built called the Nature Museum, and 1 or 2 more. museums that our volunteers had made, we launched the Eorzine Museum Network using funds from the aquarium and basically saying, if you have a museum, let us know, join our network, and we will start helping you make it better. We will signal boost it. Like we will happily start sharing that with this group because we had a ton of people who were really interested in those types of
Yes.
venues. And we just started getting more and more and more people coming in with that. And we were able to start promoting these non like dance hall, casino, gambling venues, and people were really receptive to that. And that was kind of how it started was just getting a bunch of these museums together to be like, hey, we're here, uh, and let's get them all in one place so that you can come in and people can find them and tour them and do whatever they want and support them because the aquarium's doing great. People love it. We have enough funds to help other people see similar success and be able to like provide. And I should make this very clear. When I say funds, I'm talking about Gil,
Yes, 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 yes.
specifically Gil, and like crafters and just the sheer body of like a pure amount of people who could come and volunteer. Um, we have enough. Like if you need something, we can probably find it for you, and we can get it to you for free.
Mm.
So we've had a lot of people come in and be like, "I need this like really rare item," and someone's like, "I got 3, take one," and just we would just literally just throw it at them and be like, "Here, it's yours." And doing those just little things to help make these museums better and more, more stand out and really just encourage the growth of those types of venues in Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting when you talk about like this lack of, let's say, non-dancing venues. Like I'm doing a little bit of RP in the game, and you really have like those, let's say, clubs where you don't exactly RP, right? You're just using your avatar as a way to just talk to other people, and then you have like those like heavy lore RP. Activities, venues, and stuff. And I think like the aquarium is, and all the museums are really part of this group. I've seen like in the message books a lot of people saying, "Oh, I've came for a date here because it felt like such a nice venue to spend some time with my significant other, my with it like in game or like outside of the game, but also just coming with friends." Do you think that the COVID had like a big impact on the rise of like those venues that like people needed such a place to really belong in the game?
Yes, I think that that was a big part of it as well. Within kind of going back to the aquarium, we had somebody, I cannot remember his name anymore. And I'm sad that I don't remember it because it was such a huge motivation early on for the aquarium. But somebody somewhere left a message in the aquarium message book that basically said, I used to love going to aquariums, and then I got sick and I can't go to them anymore. And you have allowed me to go back to aquariums. And I noticed that in the message book and I shared it with everybody on the aquarium team. And everyone was like, well, we can just pack up because that was all we needed. Because at the time, no one could go anywhere. And you couldn't go to aquariums, you couldn't go to museums, at least easily. And if you did, it was very strange. And so I definitely think that like the pandemic offered, I don't want to say offered, the pandemic created this world where these virtual worlds were good enough as of an alternative that people could come and use that and spend time with their partners, spend time with their friends, uh, and just escape because it was such a trying time. And yeah, no, we've seen that. That I think that that definitely was the case. We have a lot of there was a lot of instances of people. mentioning that, especially during the pandemic and lockdown, and sometimes even after.
Yeah, I think that's the exact same thing you see. You mentioned that like you went back into, well, you started fishing in real life after COVID, after the height of the pandemics. Um, in my research, it has been like such a running theme of like, oh, in Japan there was like a revival of fishing after the pandemic, um, and I think it happened like both in reality but also like in games. And one thing I was also very interested in when I visited like the aquariums in NA and EU was the fact that it is also like something a bit beyond the aquarium. Like in every venue, you have like this stage below, or like I think, yeah, I think it's often in the basement,
Mhm.
where people, I guess, can run activities or lectures or whatever. What are you doing there, and like why was it the case?
We I think those are all kind of a holdover from the fishing guild idea that I had, where I wanted to have that place that people could come and learn about fishing or get resources and get help. And one way I was seeing about doing that was through events, lectures, activities, things that could be held in game. I am by education an educator. I have a master's of education, specifically in online learning. Like I should say, my focus is in online learning. That is all I know uh, how to do. That is all I've been doing for the past, oh gosh, I don't know, 10 years now is online education as my day job. And so I knew that that was going to be a big part of that. And that's what those stages ended up being representing was we would host events and everyone would start in the basement and we would teach them what they were about to learn. So even if they knew what they were doing, they were still learning something about what it was. And all these events were there to teach people how to either fish better or something. Sometimes we even made it so that they would be learning about the real world as well, not just the in-game world. Um, so yeah, that's and so that basically that's why all the aquariums have some form of performance area so that we can use those as a stage to teach.
Yeah, it goes always like a bit beyond fishing, a bit beyond just like the mere act of fishing. There's like some sense of like, I don't know, shared culture that is like oozing from every part of the aquariums, from every part of the venue. And I've seen that also in your Discord server for the Eosion Museum Network. You do a lot of collaborations or shout outs to other projects in the community, in the RP community in general. And there is a big like focus, I think, on inclusivity. What do you think is like the role of the museum network of the aquarium in this bigger community?
We it's funny you mentioned that we do support a lot of RP events, but we never really see ourselves as an RP venue. We've never advertised as an RP venue, like an exclusive RP venue. We really want just anybody to come and enjoy themselves and have fun and be comfortable in whatever way they want. So the aquariums are, I would say, the aquariums specifically are a kind of mirror image of how I see the fishing community at large, which is this very much curiosity driven community where as long as you are curious and you are interested in fishing, you can come as however you are. Um, you can we That's really the only thing that we look for is if you're interested in fishing, you're probably already going to be in the fishing community, and that's all we care about. As long as you're not a dick or a jerk, um, you're fine. And we're welcoming, and we try and be as welcoming as possible to everybody who comes in. And that's where I think the aquariums uh try and like mirror and exemplify is doesn't matter if you're here, you're interested, we are going to welcome you as anybody else who's here and knows what they're doing. Like, we're going to help you. Doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter whatever. We're just going to be as inclusive as possible. And especially now in today's age, I've had conversations with the admins of the museum network Discord, and I'm basically like, this is what we are standing for: full on inclusivity, welcoming to all. You are welcome to shut down anything that challenges that, anything that prevents that from happening. Um, so that's really kind of the value that we defend of, everyone is equal, everyone is welcome.
I think it's also something that I've seen in like the fishing community in general. I've run through you a survey for fishers last year, and the answers were really interesting. Like some people obviously kind of like join the servers just to get some information about fishing, but a lot of people told me that they met very dear friends through fishing. Sometimes not necessarily like voluntarily. It's just like spending time in the same fishing spot. You see the same people, and then there's some sense of like community
Yeah.
building, like kind of like naturally. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Please go on.
fishing is yeah, fishing is one of those fishing is a activity in game that intentionally slows you down. And due to that nature, it is almost impossible to not talk to people and not see the same people over and over again. And when you're talking to people and seeing them over and over again, and, and you're both there for the same thing, like to catch that one fish, it is very difficult to not walk away with a friend after a while. Like, just by its nature, you are going to
Yes,
be
yes.
making friends.
I, like there were so many stories that were very interesting about that, like on like more related to the aquarium. There was like someone that wrote a long answer about like the aquarium, and that's why I wanted to interview you. She said that she used to be AFK a lot at the aquarium, and that she joined the staff afterwards, and a lot of people cheered her when she was going
I know who that
through
is.
through the expansion
I
and
know.
stuff.
Yeah. No, I know who that is. I won't name the name,
Yeah, I don't
but
I don't know the name either. Obviously, it was anonymous, but like
that
it was very a
uh
warm story, right?
yeah, the joke is they were hanging around the aquarium, and we kind of just adopted them like stray cats, is the joke that they make. Um and that's just kind of how fishing works. Is you hang around a while, you're gonna get roped into doing something. You're gonna someone's gonna invite you to go do maps. It's like, hey, I saw you going for Cinder Surprise. Do you want to come do maps with me really quick? We need one more. And that's how friendships start. And uh it's it's one of those things that I never when I was putting together the aquarium and like planning out how it was going to be structured, how we were going to do things after launch, how like what events are going to be happening. Um Never ever did it cross my mind that that was going to be like one of the biggest impacts that it has, is that people were making friends. They were I'm somebody like literally met their partner through the aquarium right now. It is so bewildering to me, the impact that this has had on people's lives outside of just fishing in general.
I think it's the big thing of like my research right now, as I'm really closing the whole script and all. Is that like if you watch like some fishing anime, because I'm studying like Japan specifically, you have this idea of like, oh, I go into fishing because why not? And then it's about like meeting people and doing things with those people in the fishing community, but like also outside. And it's creating like bridges between people. And I think like, again, I never been in the fishing community in 14 a lot, but it feels really like one of the most welcoming community in the entire game. Every time I'm talking about like fishing with them, they're always sharing information, always trying to help, to rope me into fishing and to help me. And it feels like very heartfelt, very warm. And
Yeah, yeah, and I think the reason you see that is because everybody in the community who's going to be helping you, who's going to be talking, they all know where you are because fishing is everyone knows that fishing is confusing. Everybody knows that fishing isn't well explained. Everyone knows that there is information that not everybody knows. We are still learning new things about fishing from like a realm reborn now. Um and so there's always that sense of they just don't know, so we have to help them and be nice. And that's I think that's what that's kind of why you're feeling that is that everyone is just like they almost certainly don't know because the game doesn't know and we didn't know until last week type of thing.
yeah, it makes for a very cooperative experience. Like again, like in real life, you can fish alone, but the lesson is that like it's way more fun to do that with other people. Be it like just talking to them a little bit or going fishing with them, sharing more and more of like the hobby. And you mentioned also like in your events doing lectures sometimes about like real life fish. Um, did that happen a lot? Do you branch like a lot into real life education while talking about real life?
I yeah, like I said, my background's in education, and what I would have been going into if I didn't end up on the career path that I ended up going on, the alternative was teaching science. And so I just kind of I don't remember how it really started, but yeah, I just started being like, "Hey, that fish you just caught is based on this real life fish, and here's why it's similar." And people were interested in that, and we started doing it more. And now I've done that. This will be my second year doing it at conventions. I was at Dragon Con a couple of weeks ago doing a panel on uh, how fish could live in impossible places like they do in Final Fantasy XIV. We can catch fish in volcanoes. We can catch fish in the clouds. We can catch fish in highly polluted, toxic pools, aether chemical pools, basically. And I did a panel with an actual marine biologist, like a properly educated marine biologist, which I am not, um, on how that isn't really fantasy. That's actually reality. Like fish can live in these really weird places in these very extreme areas. Um, and so I did like I've been doing that now, and that it all just started because people were like, "Hey, this is kind of cool," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's based on a real life fish," and because I have this motivation to teach science and to educate people. I might have rambled on that a little bit, so I don't know if I answered your
No,
question
I
perfectly.
think it was perfect. Had an idea, but like my cat just jumped onto me, and I lost the idea.
Cats
Cat.
always ruining ideas.
No, I think like it's. Oh yeah, do you have you seen like people? Well, coming to the aquarium, coming into the fishing community, and because of that, because of this bond, because of this education that you and other people are providing, they start fishing in real life and they also like start viewing the environment as something that needs to be protected a bit more.
That one, that one's tough. We've definitely had people who are like, "Hey, I have started fishing." I usually the pipeline that I see is, "Hey, I went to your aquarium, or I went to one of your events, or I saw one of your guides, and I started fishing because it made me motivated to do it, and then I got hooked, and then I started fishing in real life."
Yeah, yeah, I see.
um, or they had already been fishing in real life, and they started fishing in 14, and they were like, "Wow, this is actually a whole lot deeper than I thought it was," and they were able to make that connection between the game and the real world themselves. That's usually what I see. In terms of actual conservation, I have seen it a bit, but what I've found is fish stuff like aquariums, fishing is not as accessible outside of the
Yes.
game as people think. Like aquariums are expensive if you want to have your own. Not everybody has a aquarium in town. I know the closest one to me from where I live is like an hour and a half away. The next closest is 2 hours in the opposite direction. Uh, they don't really have a chance to go to an aquarium to see that. Not everybody lives near areas where they have water to go fish, or or the water is even safe to be fishing around. Like a lot of places are polluted, and so we don't see it as much of that kind of pipeline of like 14 to, let's be more conservationist, or I'm going to go fish as much, because it's a whole lot harder to get started out there because it costs more and because it's just location. But it does exist.
Yes.
And it is something that I think my next, I don't want to say goals, but like my eyes turn more towards that barrier that we see of like, people are fishing in game and the outside and doing more with real life fish and fishing and tying it back to the game to start building up that
Yes.
momentum and understanding of like, hey, uh, um, uh, Final Fantasy 14 talks about conservation issues for fish and this is actually what happens at the end of the Realm Reborn fishing job quest and the Feast of Famine quest that we talked about earlier, and in the Stormblood quest line.
Yes.
They all talk about conservation in one way. Uh, did you know that that's a thing that actually is happening? Like these are problems in the real world. I did a panel on that at DragonCon last year, but that was kind of like squirreled away. It never really made public. So I'd like to be able to do something more with that in like in a more public setting, so that everyone can see like, hey, this isn't this isn't fantasy. This is an actual thing that's
Yes.
happening, and
Yes.
start doing more with that. I am looking into potentially trying. I say I am, but in reality, it's we as a group now, as the aquarium, are looking into how could we start doing charity events to start raising
Yes.
money for conservation and increasing the knowledge of exterior, I say exterior, like real world fish and fishing issues, and becoming a more knowledge center based on that. Moving forward, we may try and do something with that next year.
Yeah. It's again, it's very interesting because it's what we see in Japan right now. After like the 2011 triple catastrophe, you have like a lot of people that are going back to the countryside, being like, I need to protect this because like we can lose that like very easily. So we need a new generation to get like interested in those issues. And we have seen a lot of things in the cities as well, trying to build fishing places inside the city for like the young people that cannot go outside. Um, and I think like it's so interesting to me that like Japanese games at some point that were very simulation focused, and they kind of like changed a little bit, and there's a much more like environmental social aspect to it. And I think it's beautiful. So you kind of like answered to my last question, but I will ask it anyway. It's like, what do you expect for the aquarium in the next years? So you talked about going more into conservationism, but do you have like other goals that you want to reach with the community, with the venue, and all?
I think we've already started doing a little bit with conservation stuff, like even a few years ago. We have a whole venue that talks about, or I should say, displays endangered creatures in the real world. It's called the Conservation House, um, which is part of the Eurasia Museum Network. Uh, I'd like to kind of revisit that and make it a bit bigger. We are talking about for Fish Fest, which would be our big like in-game fishing event, um, FishCon as it has been referred to in the past. Uh, Doing a charity event for that and supporting a marine life charity. But we're really just kind of in the early talks of that right now, so we haven't really figured out exactly how we would want to put that together. But that is kind of the goal is to we now have this very motivated group of people who are interested and we've seen that people are interested in learning more about the real world. They think it's cool that there's stuff in Final Fantasy 14 that is based on real world stuff. Most of the fish, like I can probably count on two hands the amount of fish that aren't based on real world fish. Uh Actually it might even be less now because some of them we know that they're probably based on real life fish, but they don't we just can't find that
Yeah,
connection
yeah,
yet
yeah,
because it's
yeah.
like really esoteric stuff now.
Mm,
Um, it took until a few months ago for us to find this one specific fish from like Endwalker. Um, but anyways, we're going to be looking into kind of utilizing that motivation and see what we can start doing with charity events to see if we can start bringing people into that mindset of this game isn't just a game. It
yes.
is a reflection of the real world on its own, especially with fishing, and start there and just see what happens.
Well, I hope that it will, go well. I wish you like the best for the aquarium, for the museum network. I don't know if you have like something you want to say, like to close everything, like maybe the big lesson for you with this entire project, or maybe not. I don't know.
Eh, Yeah, this whole project has been just a genuine, I don't want to be cliche and say a dream because it isn't a dream anymore. It is something that is actually happening that we can actually use. It is just a absolute delight to be able to work with the volunteers and players who are just interested not just in fishing, but how they can do more to just support the 14 community. It is really an absolute honor to be able to kind of be the person who gets to, I'm not going to say lead, but support those who want to do those things. Um, So I hope that we can kind of continue to do that going into next year, which is weird that we're already thinking about 2026 and it's only just September. Um, but like I really hope we can continue that into next year and grow the kind of grow everyone's in knowledge, I guess. I was gonna say grow the community itself, but I think it might be more important that we just grow everyone's interest in fishing and use that as our springboard into real world. Helping to bring virtual world into the real world and helping support that.
Yeah, as you said, like everyone is welcome in here, so it's it's just very beautiful. Thank you very much, Fruity Snacks, for accepting this invitation and to talk about the aquarium a bit more. Um, I wish you again the best. I think this is such a cool project, and I had like so much fun coming and visit like the aquarium, and I will come back at some point because it was just so fun. I want to share that with other people. So thank you very much, and I wish you an amazing day.
Thank you, and you are welcome. And I really do hope you do come back because we always are adding new fish.
Yeah, thank you very much.